Well, welcome to the Solutions Revolution. This is Clive de Carl, and today I'm very, very pleased to be joined by Professor Sidney Bush. And Sidney Bush is an optometrist, and he discovered perhaps one of the most amazing health factors that you need to know about, and he's named it cardioretinopathy. So welcome, Sidney.
Cardioretinometry.
Retinometry, my apologies. So, thank you so much for joining us. And tell us, what is cardioretinometry?
Well, I was standing one day looking at the image of the back of the eye, and my patient was getting rather agitated because I seemed to be taking a long time. And I was, in fact, taking a long time because I was seeing something with which I had no explanation, that I would never seen before. And it was a change in the appearance of a blood vessel, a very significant change in the appearance over a period of 1 year. And I was very, very fortunate indeed in that I'd acquired the very first of a brand new kind of retinal camera to come into the United Kingdom. And this camera was taking pictures in the detail that had never been achieved before. And I was looking at a picture of the optic nerve at the back of the eye. You can't see it with a torch or anything like that. You have to have a device which will let you look along a ray of light reflected back out of the pupil. And so it's a nice trick. But when people get a red eye that's from a flash photograph, what they're seeing in that redness is actually the glow of the retina reflecting light back out of the pupil to the camera. And not almost everybody has taken photographs which show a red eye. But what we do is you exploit that with the camera to get that into an enlarged photograph of the retina and its structures. You have to think of the eye as being rather like a flower on the end of a stalk, and the blood vessels come into the eye through the stalk of the optic nerve. So what I was looking at was these arteries and veins, which every optometrist looks at every day of his life. But I was seeing something I'd never seen before, or never recognized before. And that was a change. And it was my good fortune to have been reading the work of two brilliant scientists, Professor Linus and a cardiologist called Dr. Matthias Rath. If I hadn't been knowledgeable about their work and the scientific papers that they'd written, I wouldn't have been able to understand what I was looking at. But suddenly it flashed up in my mind that what I was looking at was actually the evidence which had completely eluded these brilliant scientists, Pauling and Rath. Pauling had won 2 Nobel Prizes, the only man in existence to have won 2 Nobel Prizes outright. And cardiologist Matthias Rath had gone from Germany to America to meet Pauling and ended up working with him, trying to find out and explain the mystery of what was causing heart disease. Well, I suddenly realized the whole thing was quite clear. Here was the proof of Pauling and Rath's hypothesis. And I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I turned to my patient and said, "Have you been taking vitamin C that I recommended?" I was advising all my contact lens patients, being a specialist contact lens practitioner. I was advising all my contact lens patients to take as much vitamin C as possible to avoid eye infections consistent with the infection introduced into the eye from the contact lenses, and to reduce the risk of allergy, because vitamin C is the most powerful anti-allergic substance on earth, antihistamine. It's the best antihistamine that there is. It's something that the pharmaceutical industry does not want people to know. And then my patient said, yes, of course, I've been taking 2 grams a day, and thought, oh, heavens above. This is the proof of falling Rath theory. This changes absolutely everything in medicine. It's a fundamental change and a fundamental discovery. And shortly after that, various doctors, and especially one learned doctor who was a professor of gynecology in Canada, that's Dr. Kenneth Walker, who writes as a correspondent for the Epoch Times and many Canadian newspapers as Dr. W. Gifford Jones. He started writing that Dr. Bush's discovery, historic discovery, is going to change medicine and is worthy of a Nobel Prize. And many other doctors started saying the same thing. I thought, well, heavens above, I can't believe this is happening to me. So, in short, what I discovered was that something that I'm afraid to say Western medicine did not want me to discover, and they're still trying to stop people learning about it. And I had to give it a name. The discovery was that arterial disease, that's heart disease, most heart disease, is reversible. And they do not want people to know that arterial disease is reversible. When the cardiologists have to learn and have to accept that arterial disease is reversible, they can no longer put their hands on their hearts and say, I'm sorry, you're the only one treatment for your heart disease, and that is a bypass. And they do not want to lose that specialist skill that they have. It's taken them a decade to learn and to acquire that skill in heart surgery to be able to perform this heart bypass operation. Until now, that has been a life-saving operation. But since this new discovery that the arterial disease can be reversed, we do not any longer need this kind of carpentry of the eye. It's crude. And if a plumber came to your house when you had a threatening breakdown in your central heating system and simply said, oh, you just need a new pump or an improvement, a repair to the pump, people would think, oh, it's as simple as that. Well, are the radiators all okay? If the pump's failing, are the radiators all okay? And then you might have to say, well, I'm sorry, yes, the whole system's probably in a state of decay. And that's what happens when you need a heart bypass. The whole system is in decay. It's just that you're threatening to have a coronary thrombosis, a sudden stoppage of the heart. But the alternative to that would be a stroke, a sudden stoppage of the blood supply to the brain. It can happen anywhere in the body. Or a blood vessel can simply explode, as with aneurysm. But all that can be prevented, and it can be reversed. And when people know, when everybody knows, the truth is out, that arterial disease is reversible, that arterial disease is preventable. When that truth is out, time is up for cardiologists who want to insist to frighten people that the only way to save their lives is to have major surgery, which might kill them on the operating table. It is no longer valid for cardiologists to insist to people that they must have a heart bypass operation. Of course, the cardiologists are very unhappy. A heart bypass operation in America can earn a cardiologist a new yacht or a new house. There is a huge amount of money involved. And the hospitals also make a great deal of money. And the drug companies make a great deal of money. And even in England, I was threatened that I had to stop telling people, I had to stop telling National Health Service patients that arterial disease is reversible under threat of losing my National Health Service license. And they carried out that threat. In 2008, in July 2008, they put me through Russian-style threats. They forced me to go to a psychiatrist, just as if I was in Russia. I thought, are they going to inject the truth drug next? I took one of my assistants with me as a witness. I didn't trust the doctors. 2 doctors can put you away. And so I was quite worried as to how far they were prepared to use their powers to suppress this knowledge. And since then, they've done everything they possibly can. They've smeared me just as they did Linus Pauling. And he had 2 Nobel Prizes. It doesn't matter who you are or how big you are, they will stop at nothing to try to preserve their incomes. And people need to know that doctors are untrustworthy. It is time we had optometrists, at least one good optometrist, on the General Medical Council in Britain, who knows what they are doing. I've had letters published in the British Medical Journal saying that MRSA infections are not necessary. They can be eliminated with vitamin C. And they ignore that, just as they've ignored every letter which has been published in the British Medical Journal by me saying that arterial disease is reversible. They know they can publish this, and the doctors won't bother to read it, or if they do read it, they'll know that nothing's going to be done about it until they get the new received wisdom. So the received wisdom is very slow to change in this matter, and we're going to wait a lot longer yet before the doctors, as a caucus of scientific practitioners, will heed what I've been saying or what you've now learned. We're going to wait a lot longer yet before they will give in and accept that arterial disease is reversible. I'm sorry, I'm going on at great length as if I'm talking to a class. I hope we still have some listeners left.
I think you'll have every single listener. I mean, what you've just said is thoroughly amazing, and it is very sad that people have to accept the corruption that is currently the norm in conventional, as they call it, medicine. It's very, very sad. I mean, even the fact that most stenosis, where they show you the angiogram and they say, look at this, you've got almost a complete blockage, you're about to die. That's been completely disproved because they can use coloured dye, as I'm sure you know, and you can see the coloured dye come down through the artery, meet where the blockage apparently is, but immediately the artery below it is filled, showing that actually what's really happening is there are little collateral blood vessels joining up the artery, and the body has healed itself anyway. And when they show you the picture, they're fooling you. It's a con.
Yes, it is a con. CON for November. It's an absolute con. Even when I see the atheroma, that's the blockage in the eye, I cannot be absolutely sure, even when I'm looking at it and measuring it, I cannot be absolutely sure how effectively that blockage is actually stopping the blood flow through that blood vessel. And the reason for that is quite simple, as I'm looking at a 3-dimensional structure, which I can only see in 2 dimensions. And even if I was using the ocular coherence tonometer, I would be, tomographer rather, I would be unable to see the artery in every detail that I would wish to. As you say, Clive, the collateral circulation is established by nature when the blood flow is interfered with, but it's eventually nature's fail-safe stopgap solutions to the problem of slowing blood flow. Eventually, nature's stopgap solutions all come to an end because you can only go on patching and patching so long. I think at this point, I should try to define, as you asked me to when I first started speaking, I should try to define cardioretinometry for the listener. He's waited patiently, so he's entitled to know. Cardioretinometry is a name that I had to make up. It had to describe a new science, a completely new science. The new science is, in full, nutritional prophylactic cardioretinometry, or nutritional preventive cardioretinometry. And of course, we have nutritional therapeutic cardioretinometry. But optometrists are really not supposed to talk about therapeutics. Optometrists are not supposed to make hearts better. And because I claimed to be able to cure heart disease, the General Optical Council in England actually forcibly brought me back out of retirement and reinstated my name on the register for the pleasure of being able to strike it off the register, to be able to teach my colleagues a lesson and say, there, that's what we will do to you if you do what Dr. Bush is doing and reverse arterial disease. So nutritional cardioretinometry is, in a nutshell, it is the observation of sequential photographs, before and after photographs of portions of retinal arteries and veins, for to show by comparison with the before and after images how much the atheroma or blockage has changed, and how effectively whatever you are asking the patient to take in the way of an antidote to the atheroma, how effective that is. And the first antidote that we hit on was, of course, the same one that Linus Pauling, Dr. Linus Pauling, and cardiologist Dr. Rath showed was their belief: vitamin C. Vitamin C has a profound effect in reducing arterial disease. But before everybody goes off and thinks, oh, all I have to do is go and eat oranges or get some extra vitamin C from the health shop, before you go and think that, I'm sorry, it's best to listen a little bit more to what I have to say, because I have found, as a result of my studies of cardioretinometry, that there is a factor of at least 1,000 in the amount of vitamin C that some people need to be able to achieve the reversal of the arterial disease. In short, some people need virtually no vitamin C at all in their diets, and you cannot stop them living to 110. If you say to those people you need a vitamin C supplement, they would laugh at you, quite rightly. They say, I've never had a vitamin tablet in my life. Now you have to remember that. The next thing you have to remember is that people are dying in their teens and 20s. They're dying of a lack of vitamin C. That is the other extreme of the spectrum. Those people may need 10 or 20 grams of vitamin C a day from very early on in life. And whilst I'm talking about very early on in life, It may come as a complete shock to listeners to learn that babies can be born with heart disease, especially if their mothers smoke or they have to breathe, have to be dependent on the mother's blood when she is breathing other people's smoke. So pregnant mums should be very, very careful, not only about not smoking themselves because they're poisoning their babies, but breathing other people's cigarette smoke, which is poisoning their babies. People need to know that. So some people then are going to need more and more vitamin C as they age. I currently take between 20 and 30 grams a day, but of course I'm going nearly 86. And I like to think I'm pretty healthy 86 because my blood vessels are the blood vessels of a very young man indeed. In fact, I can show you my blood vessels. If my wonderful assistant, who is here with me in the studio, what the studio is actually my apartment in Spain. If my wife, who is serving as my assistant, will hand me her computer, I can show you these pictures, and you can see there. Can you help me to hold it, please, so that I can see it? Have you got it? Can you hold it up? Thank you. Now I can show you picture of the before and after. The blood vessels are missing in this picture, and here they've been recovered as the atheroma has disappeared. So there you've got the picture there now. Thank you very much indeed, madam. So I have a wonderful wife. She puts up with me, never gets bored with cardioretinometry. At least that is what she says. So the cardioretinometry then is the continuous evaluation, the continuous measurement of the blockages that we can actually see and quantify in the eye. And we can gauge the effect or nil effect of nutrients, and we can test every kind of nutrient on a person simply by taking repetitive photographs of the retina and studying precise portions of retinal arteries superimposed. And when you superimpose them, you then alternate them. So you see one, then the other. And so look, I like that, as I'm showing you with my fingers. You can do this comparison quickly and see if that change is happening. The comparison shows the most minute, microscopic changes in the atheroma, in the blockage. And because we're looking at microscopically small changes, we're able to get advanced warning in a way that they've never been possible before. And the X-rays, well, are totally laughable, pathetic. They're absolutely stupid by comparison with the way we can quantify the atheroma by direct observation using a microscopic ability, the microscopic ability, I should say the photomicrographic ability, to give the right word, the photomicrographic ability of these advanced retinal cameras. And these cameras are getting so good now that the Israeli camera, made in Jerusalem, I think, can actually resolve individual blood corpuscles. And I wish I could afford to get one of those cameras. It would be great. So if there's anybody listening who can buy me that camera, you'll be doing humanity some service. So we, at the same time, you might also think about getting that book. That would help. That book's upside down. 700 Vitamin C Secrets. Everybody needs to be disabused of the idea that a few oranges will give them what they need. About maybe 5 to 10% of people can expect to live out their full lives just relying on oranges. I'm afraid the rest will be underserved by the amount of vitamin C in their diets. As we age, we seem to need more and more of the stuff. And I've been saying to patients for years now that as we get older, we need more, and eventually, it doesn't matter how much we have, we die. We're programmed to die eventually. But at least I reckon that the average person should be able to live into his hundreds, the average person. So people just need to know, have the knowledge, and they can only get the knowledge by reading and listening carefully. And then they will be well equipped to improve their health and maintain their health. But without the knowledge, I'm afraid they are doomed to be cannon fodder for Western medicine. Western medicine has no interest whatsoever in nutrition. And that was proved by a famous doctor, Dr. McCarrison, who he ended up as General Sir James. Sorry, James McCarrison was it? No, Robert. I can't remember if it was Robert or James McCarrison, but he founded the British Medical Association's nutrition section, and that was quietly dropped as soon as he died. So the Dr. McCarrison came back from the land of Hunza to the north of India or Pakistan, and he said it's no use any doctor going there because there is no living to be made. They simply don't need doctors. And he was so impressed that he spent the last part of his life practicing medicine, concentrating on nutrition. So you can see that the doctors, if they want to have a living, they can't go down that road. And there was an article on the front page of one of our popular newspapers in England saying, after I'd been doing this work for about 12 years, 12 or 13 years, saying that doctors in Edinburgh were going to start doing this work. I thought, what? How silly. They haven't a chance. All they can do is to prove that the atheroma changes, but there's no way they can follow me and prescribe vitamin C for their patients. Because when the doctors start prescribing vitamin C honestly, in the honest amounts that people can need, like 10 and 20 and even 30 grams a day, when they start practicing honest medicine, prescribing vitamin C in those kind of quantities, they can kiss goodbye to treating diseases. And there are over 50 diseases which are directly resulting from deficiency of vitamin C. And when I called this book 700 vitamin C secrets, and you can see the book, when I called that book 700 vitamin C secrets, it was a compromise. It was a compromise because actually the book goes up to nearly 2,000 secrets. But I feared it would lose credibility if I were to say 2,000 vitamin C secrets. But in fact, the book is, well, you can see there, we're on the entry 1,800 and something or other. And at the bottom of the front cover, you can see the endorsement. That endorsement says, nobody who has read this book will trust any doctor or nurse who hasn't. That's Dr. W. Gifford Jones, MD, saying that. That is his pen name for the 100 newspapers that he writes in. So, what do you want to ask me next, Clive? Have you got some questions ready for me?
Well, I certainly have. Vitamin C testing. What is the best way to figure out how much vitamin C you need?
Well, the the first thing that happened in the vitamin C saga, I think, to answer that question, we have to go back to Dr. Frederick Klenner, Klenenner. That's Kilo India, Kilo London, Echo November, November, Echo Romeo, Klenner. Dr. Fred Klenner was an amazing doctor. He was beset by an outbreak, an epidemic of polio in Reedsville, North Carolina in 1948. And he was in charge of the Annie Penn Memorial Hospital. And when people came in with the polio, he was distressed that there was so little he could do. But he had heard about vitamin C being having some surprising effects on microorganisms. And he went to consult Dr. Klaus Jungeblut at the Columbia College of Physicians in New York. And in 1948, he learned from Klaus Jungeblut that vitamin C, at least in vitro, had the capability of destroying polio viruses. And this was achieved at concentrations which the two doctors judged could be achieved in the bloodstream by injecting sodium ascorbate. You can't inject ascorbic acid, which is the purest form of vitamin C. The acid would damage the blood vessels. So you have to inject the neutralized form, which is the sodium salt. And before listeners start to worry about the amount of sodium which they're going to get if they take 10 or 20 grams of sodium ascorbate in small amounts through the day, they needn't worry about that, because the sodium is a very, very small portion of the sodium ascorbate molecule. The sodium chloride molecule, which is your table salt, is a very, very different thing. The amount of sodium in the sodium chloride molecule is very much more, nearly half. But the amount of sodium in the sodium ascorbate molecule is, so just judging from, I'm just trying to calculate in my mind, or I think it's only about 10 or 11%, something like that. So it's a very small, a fairly trivial amount. And if your kidneys are in reasonably good condition, and you don't have excess blood pressure, you shouldn't have any problems at all with the amount of sodium in the sodium ascorbate. Now, people at this point will be saying, oh, I once went to my doctor and asked him if I could possibly be needing extra vitamin C. And the doctor laughed at me. He said, oh, nobody gets scurvy in this country today. And I would like to say straight away, that is a lie. It's an absolute lie. I would say that a good 80% of the people who are listening to me now, poor things, have actually suffered from, or are actually currently suffering from, a vitamin C deficiency. And the most dangerous disease in the world for man is a disease which I have named pernicious occult scurvy. And the doctors do not want to publish that name in their medical journals. They know it is true. Pernicious, meaning it's difficult to get rid of. Occult, meaning hidden, not easy to observe. Scurvy, meaning a degeneration of your bodily tissues, notably your cardiovascular system. And so pernicious occult scurvy is hard to see disease of blood vessels mainly. And one of the first visible signs is eyes, which are never quite completely white. Eyes that tend to have too many blood vessels showing. Eyes which are slightly pink. And gums which tend to bleed easily when you brush your teeth. Or bruising, which happens too easily You shouldn't get bruises. You should be able to knock yourself quite hard, like this here. Watch me. If I knock myself like that on my bare arm, I will not bruise. But most of you people out there, if you do that, you will bruise because you just do not have the strength in your blood vessels to prevent the arteries becoming damaged by knocks like that. So easy bruising and what's called corkscrew hairs, an advanced form, an advanced degree of scurvy. You're not really likely to see that. But easy bruising, pink eyes, pink toothpaste when you spit it out. And by the way, don't be a fool and use fluoride toothpaste. Try to get rid of fluoride. It's the most monstrous con that people have ever been subjected to. If children need fluoride, they can get it much better from fluoride toothpaste. They don't need fluoride in the water. It was a wonderful way of getting rid of a byproduct which is totally unwanted and extremely expensive to get rid of. So they put it in the water supply. We became the waste bin. So you have no idea how monstrous is the experimentation which is going on directed at people. We're all being treated as if we're expendable. And you've only to look up at the sky and see the chemtrails that people are beginning to get more and more worried about to see how expendable we're judged to be. Well, Clive, I don't know what it is you want to ask me next.
Well,
have you not got a question for me? I can go on for hours. Let's talk about MRSA type infections. MRSA type infections are infections that don't respond to antibiotics because antibiotics have been overused. They've been used in cattle, and we can't stop them doing that. And they created a whole breed of bacteria, many different kinds of bacteria now, which don't respond to antibiotics. But nobody needs to worry about infections which are being caused by antibiotic-resistant bacteria. They are all vulnerable to the vitamin C insufficient amount. And I started talking about Dr. Klenner and how he had gone back to, from meeting Klaus Jungblut, he'd gone back to at the Annie Penn Memorial Hospital in North Carolina, and he had started injecting vitamin C, and it destroyed the polio virus. Within 3 days, almost all of his polio victims were getting up and walking out of the hospital. And all the other doctors' patients left the hospital either permanently paralyzed or in boxes. They wouldn't take any notice. And when Dr. Klenner lectured the American Medical Association, he didn't get a single round of applause. Nobody clapped him at all. His talk went down like a lead balloon. The doctors simply did not want to know that here was the very first antiviral, an effective antiviral medication, and they refused to recognize it. And that is absolutely monstrous. The doctors instead have inflicted antibiotics on people until they no longer have any effect of many conditions. The doctors have created diseases they can no longer cure with antibiotics. I'm afraid that as a profession, Western medicine has the power to be saintly, to do enormous good, like the Doctors Sans Frontières, who go and risk their lives with Ebola victims. And they have the other extreme, the avaricious, greedy doctors who will kill you. As Dr. Klenner was forced to say eventually, the doctor, and he said it in print, some doctors would allow their patient to die rather than admit the power of vitamin C beyond the range of a vitamin. And he was so upset and angered by his colleagues that he put that in print, that some doctors would allow their patients to die rather than admit the power of vitamin C beyond the range of a vitamin. So nobody needs to worry. Since then, Dr. Robert Cathcart has taken Dr. Klenner's work a step further. And he has, well, before he died recently, he had given intravenous injections of vitamin C to, well over 20,000 people. And he cured virtually everything that was caused by a microorganism of one kind or another. And then he wrote his famous bowel tolerance table. And you can find this on the internet. If you look for bowel tolerance, Dr. Cathcart, you don't even need to put Cathcart in, just put bowel tolerance vitamin C, and you'll get to it just with a Google search. And in that table, he says how, now I'll read the table. I've got it in the back of my encyclopedia, so everybody can get it. You just have to flick over a page. Here we are. He says in his table that the normal dose that people need of vitamin C per 24 hours in divided doses is between 4 and 15. That's 15 grams of vitamin C. Normally between 4 and 15 grams. And for a mild cold, between 30 and 60 grams of vitamin C in up to 10 divided doses. For severe cold, 100 or more grams, and doses like every hour or every other hour. For influenza, 150 grams in doses almost every hour. So you would have perhaps 10 grams an hour. And he goes on, viral pneumonia. And almost everybody will have lost a friend or a relative to viral pneumonia. And he says it's curable. You only need between 100 and 200 grams of vitamin C. Hay fever and asthma, food allergy, burns, injury, surgery can all be ameliorated by vitamin C. He goes on about cancer, many cancers. So he doesn't claim to cure every kind of cancer, but many cancers cured with between 15 and 100 grams in between 4 and 15 doses per 24 hours. Ankylosing spondylitis is cured, Reiter's syndrome, acute anterior uveitis, rheumatoid arthritis. I'm getting dry. I have to have a drink of this, excuse me. And then he continues with bacterial infections, and infectious hepatitis, and candidiasis. And I go on in my encyclopedia with detailing the treatments for many of those conditions, and I say it's an essential medical reference. So Cathcart then took over where Klenner left off, and the next thing was a development which we call liposomal encapsulated vitamin C. The encapsulation of vitamin C magnifies its power enormously. So we had a situation where when Dr. Thomas Levy, who I greatly respect, and Dr. Thomas Levy went on the internet saying that the liposomal encapsulated vitamin C was the universal antidote, I thought, his life is in danger. He will be hated by the pharmaceutical industry, and indeed by many doctors. He'd be hated by almost 100% of the pharmaceutical industry, and I would think well over 60% of the doctors. Perhaps I'm being unfair, perhaps it's only 50%, but a substantial caucus of the doctors in the West would hate him for breaking ranks and saying that vitamin C in this new much more readily absorbable form of liposomal vitamin C can cure almost anything. Well, it won't cure the congenital defects, obviously, but Dr. Levy is right, and I wasn't surprised when, after a week of videos being adopted and hosted on many different websites, they were all suddenly taken down at the request of the user. Well, I thought, there you are. He's being threatened. Either he's being threatened or he's being threatened with losing close family members. Obviously, the threat was there that he could not go on saying that liposomal vitamin C is the universal antidote, and they will threaten me in due course if sufficient radio programs reach sufficient people to tell people to stop worrying about infections and needing antibiotics. So it's a tough world we're in, but I'm afraid the truth has to come out, and it doesn't matter if whatever they do. I think the doctors shot themselves in the foot by insisting that the General Optical Council struck me off the register, because that's making many people very, very angry indeed. When an optometrist is held up as a protector of public health against the doctors, people start to take notice. So I think the doctors have shot themselves in the foot there. Optometrists will be called on to monitor the medical profession, and we will be very, very good monitors, because we know the dirty tricks that the doctors can get up to. We understand medicine, and we have no axe to bear, we have no grudge to bear. We just want to see fair play. And the time is up on corrupt Western medicine, when the optometrists are called upon to sit on medical councils as witnesses and as moderating influences, and to say, you're sorry, you can't do that. You have to admit that's not true. You have to admit there's sufficient research. There's no need to go to the far end. They want to go to the far end with cardioretinometry. They want to say there are thousands of images of people's arterial disease being reversed, to which I have 200 written testimonials, and they want to say that they don't count. They want to say that they're not valid. And I insisted to my patients. I said, please don't claim that vitamin C reversed your arterial disease unless you are absolutely 100% sure that vitamin C reversed your arterial disease. And 100 of the 200 said, yes, we insist on writing that. And that 100 testimonials can be found on the internet. If you look at my website, www.700vitaminsecrets.com, or any of my websites pretty well. If you look up da-da-da-da-lifeextensionoptometry.org, you'll find, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll find a long list of 100 names with what people wrote about cardioretinometry. And people are very impressed. And now I receive images from people, from optometrists all over the world. People write to me asking if I will study their retinal images and get pronounced on the degree of arterial disease from which they are suffering, and advise them what needs to be done. And I can do that. And eventually I'll get my house back. So they had to put rather a lot of money into it. I've never had any financial backing. So there we are. I don't know if now you have any questions that you want to ask me, Clive. Clive, are you awake?
I am indeed. I was wondering whether a device could be created probably quite simply using a computer to compare the images. So one could so literally like a non-contact tonometer, you could just use it on somebody, and you could get anybody could use it, and they come back every month or 2 months for a comparison. Could it be a like a screening thing that just could happen in the high street?
Well, yes, if people wait for years, they could be able to see the differences themselves. But my biggest problem in introducing cardioretinometry as a taught subject for a Doctor of Cardioretinometry degree, my biggest problem started with my colleagues who claimed that there was no difference, and it showed how much training people need in order to be able to differentiate these very small changes. It is not easy, and one has to spend hours in a dark room with successive images, sequential images, comparing them. And the Bachelor of Science, the university student who was wanting to write his thesis for his Bachelor of Science degree at Hull University in England, he said it was very, very stressful for him to do that. And he put that in his thesis, that he found the work very, very stressful. Because we found that whilst he was doing his thesis, we found that he was suffering from stress. It was showing in his own arteries, and I had to prescribe extra vitamin C for him. And I was able to show by the time he wrote his thesis and got his first class honours degree, I was able to show that he had reversed the disease, his heart disease that he was bringing on through his intensive study of the subject.
So a computer surely would be absolutely ideal for taking that stress out of the work, because the computer wouldn't get stressed.
Unfortunately, it's a pipe dream. People cannot expect to be able to be their own doctors in this. It's too difficult by far.
Yes.
The difference that I showed you on the screen was a difference that resulted over 16 years. 16, not 60.
Yes.
13, 14, 15, 16. So that's that difference over 16 years was a hit you in the eye. Anybody can see that difference. But when we're talking about the differences that are to be seen after a month or 2 months or 3 months, even at 3 months, it can be very, very difficult indeed to see these differences. So it requires a great deal of training. And we've had Dr. Fonro at Chicago University trying to produce an artificial intelligence program for evaluation of the images, and he wasn't able to do it. And I'm hoping that people at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, with whom I'm working at the moment on something else, I'm hoping that they will be able to eventually achieve an a computerized program, a computerized analysis of the images, because it would be a great thing. We have to have it eventually, but it's a very, very difficult thing to do. I wrote a 41-point scale of changes, and there's probably 50 grades of change between each of the 41 grades which I've written down. So you can get some measure of the difficulty when I quantify it for you in that way.
Yes, indeed. Well, we're going to have now about a 4-minute break, and when we come back, I've got a host of questions. I hope you'll be. Well, I know you'll be able to answer. Because this vitamin C subject is so enormous, and
this is huge, yeah. Absolutely huge subject.
Brilliant. So we'll put on some music now, and we'll speak again in just a few minutes' time.
Okay, well, to see you again.
So thank you for joining us again, Sidney. And Curiously, when I was in Birmingham this summer, I was speaking at a conference where Thomas Levy was the keynote speaker, and he gave the most fascinating talk on vitamin C that I've ever heard, apart from the one you've just given just now. And I was amazed at the potential of vitamin C to cure everything that really exists. And what I found particularly amazing was its ability, when killing pathogens, to actually provide the raw materials to clean up the mess afterwards.
Yes, well, we don't fully understand vitamin C, I think, by a long, long way. It's, I think it's true to say that there's as much to be discovered, probably, about vitamin C as we know now. So we think we know, but I'm afraid it's, well, I can't say a lot because the team with which I'm working at the moment is a multidisciplinary team drawn from doctors in practice and scientists at Massachusetts Institute of Technology and people like me, which really do make it multidisciplinary. And we're hoping to get to origins of life pretty well. And I don't think anybody has so far. Well, I'd better not say any more. I think that's enough. We're writing a lot of papers about this, and so there's quite a few developments in the pipeline this year, and people will have a huge amount more respect for vitamin C when they hear what is being discovered. I can't say any more about it. It's a quite most remarkable molecule, and that's all I want to say.
Well, Thomas Levy was saying that he couldn't think, I believe, of any virus that couldn't be overcome by vitamin C. I think the only one that nobody seemed to have tested it on was Ebola.
Yes, well, Klenner said that. Dr. Klenner said that there was no virus which would not yield to vitamin C. So I'm very pleased to hear Tom Levy confirming that. I mean, we don't have enough doctors working on it. Dr. Kalakerinos in Australia, I think, and Dr. Detman also, I think it's the late Dr. Detman in Australia also, had remarkable results with vitamin C, particularly working with poor Aboriginal children who are not well served there. The medical treatments for vitamin C, you must understand, are not my area. I am an optometrist. Because cardioretinometry was being ignored by the medical profession, and because I couldn't get papers published in peer-reviewed medical journals, I was forced to Plan B. And Plan B was to hit them hard with a book which told the blunt truth. And 700 vitamin C secrets is exactly that. It's a very, very hard-hitting book. And when people read it, they will think, good heavens, he didn't dare say that, did he? He's liable to lose his life. And I thought, I'm over 80. Damn them, I don't care. I'm going to say what I believe to be the honest truth, and they are going to hear it. And that's what's in that book. 700 vitamin C secrets. It pulls no punches. It tells the honest truth, and the doctors don't like it. And that's why the honest Dr. Kenneth Walker, the gynecologist in Toronto, who writes as Dr. W. Gifford Jones, that's why he said in his newspaper columns that Dr. Bush's historic discovery is worthy of the Nobel Prize, because I finished with cardioretinometry. I finished Dr. Linus Pauling's hypothesis and converted that to a theory, and the doctors didn't want it. They always tried to smear Pauling, and now they're trying to smear me just the same. So we have a war, and the public never understood that we have a war between the honest doctors and the dishonest doctors in the medical profession. It's a civil war in the medical profession. And any doctor who wants a career has to be very, very careful not to show his hand, but to remain in the background until he gathers sufficient strength from his colleagues, very, very quietly, to do something about it. That day will be hastened by cardioretinometry. So until then, they need all the help that they can get. And my book, 700 Vitamin C Secrets and 1,000 Not So Secret for Doctors, is the subtitle. 700 Vitamin C Secrets and 1,000 Not So Secret for Doctors is a teasing title. I thought it took me quite a while to get to such a teasing title. But I thought I'll suck it to them with the title before they even read the book. And so I got all the help I could from Dr. Gifford Jones, who put that remarkable endorsement on the front that nobody who has read this book will trust any doctor or nurse who hasn't. I thought that no doctor could be expected to say more than that. And Dr. Kenneth Walker in Toronto, who writes as Dr. Gifford Jones, has to be applauded for his outstanding honesty and bravery in saying that. And he said to me several times on the phone and in the emails, he's absolutely ashamed of his colleagues who have turned away from helping him. They've simply shrugged their shoulders and turned away from him. But of course, now he's retired from medicine, he's not needing their referrals, and he's helped in that way that they can't do him damage now. And then I know several doctors who are nearing retirement who are coming out and starting to try to straighten out their profession. But it's very difficult for them. It certainly can't be popular with them, with what seems to me to be the dishonest majority. We have no way of knowing at present just what the proportions are.
So if overnight wondrous thing happened and now every doctor understands what you've been saying and prescribes the right amount of vitamin C to all their patients. Now, let's say for every 100 people ill now, at the end of a year or two, what would you think, how many out of that 100 would be still ill?
How many of the 100 would be what?
Still ill. You know, if 100 people
still ill.
Yeah, if 100 people had
still suffering. Well, I would say that if people use the sodium ascorbate in the way that they should, to find what their bowel tolerance is, it would be a great big step forward for the average person to not get ill in the first place. And if they'd have to do a few other things. I mean, I do go on at great length about polyunsaturated fatty acids. That means all these oils and margarines which have been pushed at people quite reprehensibly by the medical profession. It was thoroughly dishonest. There were no studies. The much vaunted peer-reviewed, double-blind, placebo-controlled studies were never done. And they're the ones who scream at me, you haven't done your double-blind, placebo-controlled studies. They are hypocrites because they threw margarines at people, rapeseed oil, sunflower oil, on the false promise that those oils would help them. And instead, what they did was to actually reduce the amount of vitamin C in their bloodstream. They damaged people's small amount of vitamin C that they had. They damaged it further with these rotten oils like rapeseed oil and sunflower oil and the margarines. And how they got away with putting a heart on the lid of a margarine box, I do not know. The doctors are so quick to stop people marketing vitamins with anything like a heart on their bottle. If I want to buy lysine, it's an amino acid which helps to scour the cholesterol out of people's arteries. There are a lot of things that besides vitamin C, which help to reduce the atheroma. The manufacturers are so frightened of the FDA saying they'll come down on them like a ton of bricks and put them out of business, put them in jail even. They mustn't put a heart. They mustn't put my logo. My logo, let me show you again, the eye with the heart. They mustn't put that, they're too frightened to put that logo on a food which will reduce people's heart disease. The medical profession has so much power which they wield through pharmacy. That's why I call them the pharmacomedical mafia. And they are the pharmacomedical mafia. Make no mistake, they play rough. So they have had it too much on all their own way. Dr. Levy is right. The vitamin C in a sufficient degree, of sufficient dosage will, especially in the liposomal form, cure lots of diseases and more quickly than the powdered form. But he's a doctor and I'm an optometrist. I can only quote the work that the doctors do who are more enlightened. The liposomal form acts because it's absorbed more readily into the bloodstream. And the powdered form of sodium ascorbate that you take, you dissolve it in a cup of warm water, that is slower to be absorbed. It has to pass through the intestinal wall. Well, actually, it's not exactly true, because as soon as you can taste it, it's in the bloodstream. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to taste it. But you don't find references to that in the works. You have to come to that conclusion yourself. However, I mean, like if you taste cyanide, you're dead. So I think we can assume that if you can taste sodium ascorbate, it's in the bloodstream. But all the books say it's absorbed from the gastrointestinal tract, and you haven't got to think for yourself about how much it can be absorbed from the mouth and the throat. You mustn't think for yourself at all in these matters. You have to think what doctors want you to think. So the liposomal form is absorbed directly through all the tissues, much more readily. And because of that, it doesn't cause the bowel intolerance effect, because most of it goes straight into the bloodstream. And to get the bowel intolerance effect, you have to have a residue which reaches the colon, the colorectal area, to draw water into the gut to force an evacuation. And then you have a watery stool. And when you have that watery stool, which is perhaps not your usual bowel movement, then you know that the vitamin C you're taking is adequate, at least at that particular time. I have found on 2 occasions that I've been able to take 200 grams before I got a bowel movement from the vitamin C. What was attacking me? Some virus, something was attacking me to need 200 grams. And we'll never know what it was. So you have to find your own way with the vitamin C. But to be sure, you need the cardioretinometry to take sequential photographs of the retinal arteries for expert evaluation, to be able to show over a period of 3 months and 6 months and then every 6 months whether or not you've been getting enough vitamin C consistently over that period of time. It's only that way that you get an integrated evaluation. And one of my colleagues, one of my optometry colleagues, the professor of optometry, in fact, he appeared to lose confidence in me when I said the LART test, that's the lingual ascorbic acid test, is invalid. He said, why? You should be able to do that. I said, yeah, it'll just tell you what the vitamin C level is in the plasma at that particular time. It won't tell you what it is during the night. That's when your repair is being carried out. It won't tell you what it is next morning. Without if you have an orange before you go to the doctors to have your lingual ascorbic acid test, that'll give a different result. So only the cardioretinometry gives a true result over a period of time. And that's what I was so pleased with myself to discover. So vitamin C is the most amazingly complicated subject. And people must not think that simply by taking a few oranges or a vitamin C supplement of a few grams that they're going to be safe. That's absolutely blissful ignorance. You cannot assume that at all.
I've heard Dr. Rath talk about lysine in conjunction with vitamin C. Would you recommend that people, once they clearly have realised now that vitamin C is a lifesaver, and so should they take lysine as well?
Well, Dr. Gifford Jones actually markets his Medi-C product, which is a combination of vitamin C and lysine. I think it's the first one to go on the market as a combination. And I'm not sure if Dr. Fonner at the Vitamin C Foundation is starting to market one. But Dr. Fonner and Dr. Gifford Jones, or Dr. Kenneth Walker, as his professional name is, have been I think they are the first in that area. And certainly I know that Dr. Gifford Jones in Medi-C is on the market, and you can get it on the internet. So it's very, very good indeed. But I hesitate to market one myself because I don't want to be accused of simply being a vitamin salesman. That's what they did with Dr. Rath. They tried to smear him as a vitamin salesman in the Guardian newspaper. It was disgusting exercise. But he's done more than any living person to show how the scurvy actually causes the heart disease. And in showing how it causes heart disease, he showed how the lysine, to answer your question, he showed how the lysine works in combination with the vitamin C to get the atheroma out of the arteries. So it's a very, very clever combination, the way the vitamin C works synergistically with the lysine. But I should mention that those people who are using alpha-lipoic acid also as an antioxidant, and it's a very, very powerful antioxidant, must be careful if they're using alpha-lipoic acid in conjunction with Medi-C or with lysine, because the two combine to form a bond, a chemical bond, which cannot be broken by the hydrochloric acid in the stomach. So if you're taking Medi-C, Dr. Gifford Jones's Medi-C, or you're taking separate lysine with your vitamin C, you must be careful to take your alpha-lipoic acid, I would think, 2 hours apart in order to get the full benefit of either. So there are quite a few things that are difficult to understand, and it's much too much to tell in a program like this.
Yes, clearly. With the other sort of orthomolecular approaches of niacin and all the vitamins and minerals, have you got anything, any particular adjuncts that you would just say, well, you've got to pay attention to this and this?
Well, you're into a very, very complex area there, Clive, when you're talking about what adjuncts you would use with vitamin C, because, as I say to my registrants, I give them a short list of things I particularly want them to take. But after that, there's a huge range of things. Like, let me just say that I've got this on the internet. I don't make any secrets of it. You don't have to pay me to find out. But I recommend people to be very, very careful to supplement the sodium ascorbate with the lysine and with natural vitamin E, E for England. Vitamin E is going to be a world shortage soon of the natural vitamin E. Very confusingly, comes from sunflower oil. And you've already heard me say that sunflower oil should not be used in the kitchen. It shouldn't be in bread or cakes or pastry or ready-made foods. It shouldn't be in any part of the human diet. And you might say, well, you're contradicting yourself. You just said vitamin E comes from sunflower oil. And I say, yes, that's true. And then after they're taking the vitamin E out of the sunflower oil, you might get it. And the why is the vitamin E in the sunflower seed? It's there to preserve the sunflower seed from going rotten, from going rancid. And because the sunflower oil, which is in the supermarkets, in the bottles that you see, has been robbed, has had its vitamin E extracted, you are then absorbing a very, very dangerous product, which some biochemists say they would even wash off their hands, let alone swallow it. So vitamin E is only functional in the natural form. You've not heard me mention this yet. There are two forms. And the unnatural synthetic form is the kind which quite deploringly doctors use in studies and trials which are designed for headlines to say that vitamin E has no effect. They use synthetic vitamin E to prove that vitamin E, unquote, doesn't work. Synthetic vitamin E is to that extent damaging. And you should challenge any pharmacist or anybody who tries to sell you a synthetic form of vitamin E. But I've been in pharmacies and asked the pharmacist deliberately, is this natural or synthetic? And they've looked at it and they've said, I'm sorry, I can't be sure. And yet the identification is there in front of them on the label. It has to be on the label by law, but it's not an identifiable factor that you could understand unless you know a lot about vitamin E. The way you identify the synthetic rubbish product is by looking what it says in front of the alpha tocopherol. It says little d, a little l, DL, like Delta London. It says DL alpha tocopherol. If it says D alpha tocopherol, that's all right. That's the natural form of vitamin E. And that comes with all the tocotrienols. You have alpha tocopherol, beta tocopherol, gamma tocopherol, and delta tocopherol. And you also have the alpha, beta, gamma, and delta tocotrienols. And now they're starting to find out all sorts of wonderful things, wonderful benefits which are associated with those different forms of vitamin E, which nobody ever knew about. So doctors are continuing to use the DL synthetic rubbish form for their studies in order to be able to trumpet and broadcast vitamin E doesn't work, no use, wasting your money. And that's what they've done in the past. So people, my registrants, are well versed in this. And I've written articles in the Epoch Times before they sacked me as a health correspondent. I think the pharmaceutical people engineered that. I was telling too much about the truth, and they got me the sack from the Epoch Times. I did 2 years of monthly articles on health from an optometrist point of view. Anyway, what I tell my registrants is you have to have your vitamin C to bowel tolerance. That's most important. You have to have your lysine, probably 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 grams a day, depending on your age, depending on your biological individuality. You have to have your natural vitamin E. I insist on 1,000 international unit capsule every day for everybody. Doesn't matter what your age is. Everybody should take 1,000 unit capsule of natural vitamin E per day. And now I'm not going to be able to get it myself because I've told you. Also, you should have a good vitamin B tablet, especially if you're on any kind of crazy diet, if you're trying to lose weight. You should have a 5,000 international unit capsule of natural vitamin D, D for Delta, D for Donald Duck. Well, and you should have a good-sized tablet of ginkgo biloba. Ginkgo biloba is the oldest tree known to man, and it has, or it's supposed to have, benefits on the cerebral vasculature, the blood that's supplied to the brain. Well, I don't know if that's true, but I take it just in case. And I want somebody to fund me to do a study which will show, Cardioretinometry will show quickly whether or not ginkgo biloba really does have any benefit for our cerebral circulation. And the reason why I say that, as I can find that out for people for the first time, is that the blood vessels in the retina are exactly the same as blood vessels in the brain, just as they're exactly the same blood vessels as in the coronary arteries. So the coronary arteries, the cerebrostriate arteries of the brain, and the central artery of the retina are all derived from the same root, and they show the same disease. So if somebody out there will find somebody who can fund me to do a study of ginkgo biloba, I'm very happy indeed. Thank you very much. I'm wondering now if I've talked too long and drilled on about my favourite subjects. Of course, after ginkgo biloba, then you come to things like alpha-lipoic acid and N-acetylcysteine and a whole range of antioxidants like astaxanthin and the various pigments that people take to ward off, they hope, ward off retinal degeneration, that is age-related retinal degeneration, macular degeneration. I've cured 2 cases of macular degeneration, I think, and I'd like people to know that it's not necessarily a sentence of blindness. One of my nurses was told by her ophthalmologist that macular degeneration suggested that she should train for blindness, and she was on the point of suicide. And I said, don't give up. I think we can get some of your sight back. And she persisted with my recommendation after the doctors had given up, and we got her sight back. We got it back to 75%. So enough for her to be able to drive a car legally, and we got photographs to prove how, at every stage, how the retina was getting better. But we couldn't get the full colour vision back. I've not seen her for a while to ask her how her colour vision's getting on, but we got her vision back up to 75% in black and white. And since colour blindness does not prevent people having driving licenses, she was very happy to know that if anything happened to her better eye, she would still be able to drive. So that was a success. And fortunately, one of my honest doctor colleagues was able to recommend one of his patients, she was over 80, to me with signs of macular degeneration starting, and I was able to cure her as well. So that was 2 cases. And I don't know if everybody would respond, but I do regard the wet form of macular degeneration as an arterial disease, and actually basically a form of scurvy. And to what extent the retinal pigments are involved, and how plant pigments such as the lutein from marigold flowers, to what extent lutein and astaxanthin, zeaxanthin, those pigments can improve, I don't know. But I advised my nurse to use as much spinach as she could possibly stomach with her diet. Spinach every day. And I think spinach has all the things in it that people need. I really don't think there should be any need for people to go into exotic pigments for this cure. I don't think we're designed to need exotic cures. I think we're designed to need everyday things that everybody can put their hands on. So I make no secret of my recommendations. It's all there. You don't have to pay me money for them. And you can look them up on the internet if I've missed out anything. So there's a whole long list of things you have faith in. Eye bright is one that some people have faith in. Nothing against any of those things. If people want to use any of these herbal medications, herbal supplements, then they can do. I mustn't call them medications. If anybody wants to use these herbal supplements, the thing to remember is that in the statistics put out by the Centre for Disease Control, much as they would like to find somebody who's been damaged by vitamins, they've never been able to. Year after year, they publish tables showing how many people, millions of people, are damaged by modern drugs. Over 100,000 people die in the United States alone in hospitals from their medications. 100,000. They die every year. Over 100,000 people, the official statistic, from properly prescribed medications properly administered in United States hospitals. There's no reason to think the proportion is different in European hospitals, and they die of prescribed drugs, and they have the cheek to say that vitamin C and other vitamins might be dangerous, when the Centre for Disease Control has never been able to identify a single death from vitamins bought in a health shop. There is hypocrisy for you. Hypocrisy on a scale that is totally unimaginable if I haven't proved it to you here and now. So, you're one more nail in the coffin of corrupt Western medicine. Oh, Clive, I hope I haven't bored you to death.
Not in the slightest. It's incredible that what is presented to us is so huge that people miss it because it's so huge. I mean, it's so obvious that the medical profession out there, the pharmaceutical industry, has only profit as its motivation. And it's so clear, luckily, how simple the answers are. As mind-blowingly huge as vitamin C is, vitamin D is equally magnificent.
Before people say I'm plugging just my own book, let me show you another book by Dr. Suzanne Humphreys. Suzanne Humphreys has written a beautiful book. She's a medical doctor who's been ostracized by the medical profession for saying vaccinations are not necessary. And she wants to see an end to all vaccinations. But I think she would agree with me that there is a case to be made for the rubella vaccine. The rubella vaccine, German measles, I think we can make a case for that because the damage is done in pregnancy, even before the stage of implantation in the womb. Between fertilization and implantation, that's conception. Between fertilization and conception, the damage is done by the German measles virus. And so unless girls are made to take vitamin C continuously, and that's pretty difficult, then perhaps it might be justified to give the girls the German measles vaccine. But as regards the rest of the vaccine, the MMR vaccine is an absolute disgrace. It's absolute fraud. They should not do it. And doctors like Dr. Wakefield have been unfairly penalised for saying so. But then there's huge corruption. Hitler said, tell a big enough lie and it will be believed. You just have to make the lie big enough. And that's what the doctors have been doing. They've been telling the lies on such a monstrous scale, they have been believed. People have wanted to believe. I have to say, we have all what can be described as a pathetic need to believe in our doctors. And it has displeased me enormously to find how little I can trust doctors. I've had wonderful service from doctors, but some of it only because I've known how to play the game. Anybody else wouldn't have got the same result. So you need to take a great interest in your own health. You need to know how to prevent. Prevention is far, far better than cure. And you must not accept doctors telling you arterial disease is irreversible. Well, after Dr. Butler, in my view, the accursed Dr. Butler in Hull, who was the chief of the National Health Service in Hull in East Yorkshire, told me that she was going to teach me to respect doctors, and that I couldn't have a National Health Service contract and continue to tell National Health Service patients that arterial disease is reversible. I wanted nothing more than to show her up. And when it came to what the frame-up and the kangaroo court of this fitness to practice hearing, I had her just where I wanted her and made her eat her words. And I had another doctor also challenging me and saying that this is a doctor called Dr. Well, his name's gone for the moment. This doctor said that I was causing a shortfall in the uptake of cardiology services in the Hull Royal Infirmary. That was Dr. Mark Hancock in Hull. And when I had him on the stand, so to speak, the first question I said to Dr. Hancock was, "Are you an honest doctor?" Can you remember alleging in writing to the General Optical Council that I did not have the permission of Dr. Lean Vitfleet to put his name on a brochure for anti-coronary clinics? No, he couldn't remember that, but we had it in black and white. And the General Optical Council, to their eternal disgrace, showed how corrupt they are by refusing to take action, refusing to prosecute Dr. Hancock for his lie, because he is a liar, and he cannot prosecute me because I am telling the truth. So 700 Vitamin C Secrets has that on the back in black and white about Dr. Hancock. So it's a wonderful book. I pull no punches in it. I tell the truth.
Well, congratulations. Can I ask you two very specific questions? I personally am a type 1 diabetic. Any good advice for type 1 diabetics? Would vitamin C, for instance, if I really went for it big time, have an effect?
Well, you should. Clive, let me quote you Dr. Cathcart. Dr. Cathcart said, vitamin C is never wrong. And he emphasized in every conversation that I had with him, he said, vitamin C is never wrong. And he went further. He said, if I were the Tsar of medicine, I'm quoting his words to you exactly as he told me. He said, if I were the Tsar of medicine, the worldwide emperor of medicine, I would make it a rule in every hospital that every doctor responsible for admissions of patients to my hospital would be required to have an immediate intravitamin C drip set up whilst the doctor ponders his diagnosis. And furthermore, failure to do so would require a 2-page written report on A4, handwritten on both sides of both sheets, setting out all the reasons why you did not do that. So he couldn't have been more firm about it. And my advice to you, Clive, is that if you will take vitamin C, as I am assured by Dr. Cathcart you should do, you will live longer. We have Dr. Eli found the Eli antagonist, the glucose antagonism theory of Eli, to give it the correct name. The glucose antagonism theory of Eli says that as the blood sugar rises, so the entry of vitamin C into the red blood corpuscles is reduced. It is hampered and handicapped. It's blocked by the high levels of the glucose. And Dr. Emmanuel Churaskin, in his book, I would recommend you to get that book. You should read it, being a diabetic. The book is called Vitamin C, Who Needs It? Have you got that? Vitamin C, Who Needs It? By Emmanuel Churaskin, Churaskin. Emmanuel Churaskin, in that book, devotes a whole chapter to diabetes, and you would do well to read it, because it gives you all sorts of information that you need. So yes, you need vitamin C, and because you are diabetic, you need more than other people. And if you were a schizophrenic diabetic, you would need even more, because it's been shown that schizophrenics need 10 grams of vitamin C even before they start to excrete it in their urine. So as Dr. Linus said, schizophrenics have a short, miserable life because they don't know that.
I'm lucky. I know I'm not schizophrenic because I've got this little voice in my head that tells me I'm not.
We don't sound it, but there you are.
So, I mean, I tend to take about 5 grams a day, but I'm taking ascorbic acid. Would you say that it would be better to take the sodium ascorbate because of the alkalinity side of things, or what do you think?
Well, Dr. Harold Robinson was a student of Dr. Pauling's, the great admirer of Dr. Pauling, and he wrote a paper about the inadvisability of taking ascorbic acid because it could encourage a cancer, he thought. Well, that's been discounted by other doctors in the Orthomolecular Medical Association. and like you've mentioned, Dr. Levy. And these doctors in the Orthomolecular Medical Association, they're actually treating cancer with vitamin C. So I think that answers your question. But before we finish on that theme, I must say that I do have a feeling that at low levels of acidity, without taking sufficient vitamin C, that the acid state is more conducive to cancer. And I would recommend that people do not take in the long term, that they don't every day take ascorbic acid. I have no problems at all in taking ascorbic acid for a day or two or a week or two. If I run out of sodium ascorbate, I will quite happily take ascorbic acid for a day or two or a week or two, as I have even here in Spain. But I don't recommend the very long-term use of ascorbic acid. I think that people are much wiser to use the sodium ascorbate. And if they ask, is there an upper limit to how much sodium ascorbate I can take by mouth, I would say the answer to that question is probably best answered by referring to, again, to Dr. Cathcart and how much he has actually injected intravenously into people. Because you will be shocked to learn that injections, intravenous treatments of vitamin C have been as much as 2 and even 300 grams. That's 200,000 milligrams to 300,000 milligrams of vitamin C slowly injected over a period of 24 hours. So I think that answers your questions and any you might have about how much sodium ascorbate you can safely take by mouth. If that amount can be injected, I can't see you having any problems with any amount you're going to take by mouth.
And what do you think about taking vitamin C in the form of camu camu or acerola cherry or that sort of approach?
I have no problems with that whatsoever. If people want, if these plants, these herbs are now being brought into cultivation, remember, Clive, that I think it's Dr. Pauling who said in one of his books that about the acerola tree, that the man, and he's talking about people in Puerto Rico and Mexico, he said that the man with the acerola growing at his back door keeps disease out of the front door.
And I heard that
acerola is your acerola cherry. And you mentioned camu camu, which has even more. And then, of course, you have the newly discovered Kakadu plum, the Australian Kakadu plum, which I think they're going to bring that into cultivation as well, but it's perhaps more difficult. But the Kakadu plum has even more. I think, from memory, the acerola cherry, the big acerola cherry, would have about 1 gram weight of vitamin C for every gram of acerola cherry without the stone. It's a very, very high proportion.
And
so it should be quite possible to have 12 grams of vitamin C just by eating acerola cherries.
And is it true that whereas the ascorbic acid or sodium ascorbate form leaves the body in a couple of hours, that the form in the sort of the whole food of camu camu or acerola stays in the body for much, much longer and gets recycled? Is there truth to that?
I can't answer that question because I simply don't have any data on it. But if you're on that subject of how long vitamin C persists in the plasma, then there are very, very important things for people to know. And I don't know if I have time remaining to give you an extremely helpful analogy for people to understand an extremely complex physiological state, because I call the physiology of vitamin C in the plasma as a biphasic system. Biphasic, B-I-P-H-A-S-I-C, biphasic, two phases. There's the phase of vitamin C above the renal threshold, the kidney threshold, and there's the phase of vitamin C in the plasma below the kidney threshold. Now, above the renal threshold, vitamin C is excreted very rapidly, and I think we're indebted to Professor Stephen Hickey and Dr. Hilary Roberts for this work. Dr. Hickey and Dr. Roberts showed that the half-life of vitamin C in the plasma was 30 minutes. In other words, they found that if you could get the vitamin C level in the plasma up to double the renal threshold, that is, say the renal threshold is set at 14 milligrams per litre of plasma, then if you get it up to 28, then that extra 14 milligrams would dwindle away through the kidneys by loss into the urine to 7 milligrams after half an hour. And that 7 milligrams over and above the renal threshold would dwindle away into the urine down to 3.5. And that 3.5 in the next half hour would dwindle away to 3.5, and the next 3.5 would dwindle away to 1.5, so on and so forth. So that after about 5 hours, it would be as if you hadn't had any vitamin C at all, especially if you've been stressed. Now, a person who is not stressed would perhaps stay at the renal threshold for quite some considerable time, because various researchers have found that there is, I don't want to go in, this is all in the encyclopedia, I don't want to go into really, really advanced vitamin C physiology, pharmacology. They found that we are completely unlike other animals. Other animals do not use vitamin C and process it in the same way as we do. We process vitamin C, recycle it very much more efficiently than all the other animals. And we have to do that because we can't make any. But we have a big advantage over the guinea pig in that we can take a supplement. The guinea pig doesn't have a factory. So in the case of the renal threshold, if you were so unlucky as to set foot on a yacht bound for the Easter Island and from South America, you might not make it alive to Easter Island because by the time you get there, you'd have lost too much vitamin C. But a person who uses less vitamin C, a person who's less stressed, perhaps more laid back, will survive. Christopher Columbus survived. He survived the journey to the America and back again. So there may have been something different about Christopher Columbus's physiology, and you have to ask why those people in nursing homes who lived to 110 without a supplement, why do they survive when people all around them are dying in their 80s and 90s? There's a lot we don't know. But I came to the conclusion that there are some people who make their own vitamin C. And the research team with which I'm associated have actually found a source of vitamin C in the body that nobody seems to have known about. And I don't want to go on about that because that's ready to be published in various papers through this year and possibly next year. So I was just pleased to have it proved that there is another source of vitamin C in the body, which I suspected as being present, and I said this in my encyclopedia 6 years before I was informed that is the case by erudite members of the research team, and but most people, it seems, are thoroughly dependent on their dietary sources, and if they don't have it, they're doomed to live a shorter life than they could have done if they'd taken adequate supplements throughout their lives.
Well, thank you so much, Sidney. We've reached 9 o'clock, and it's been fantastic, and I'd love to talk to you more, but right now I've got to pass things over, and hopefully we'll speak again in the near future. Thank you all for joining us. Good night.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for having me.